Welcome to the Richmond Film Network Podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN pod.
Welcome to the Richmond Film Network Podcast. My name is Lisa Giles, your host. And with me today is Bobby Huotari, filmmaker from Powhatan, whose latest short, Guilt, is a psychological drama with horror undertones. It will have its world premiere at RFN Indie Fest on November 15th at the Park RVA. The film dives into the mind of a man grappling with self-destruction and the ghost that won't let him go. Bobby, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So Guilt feels both psychological and supernatural at the same time. Like the haunting, so to speak, might be as much internal as it is external. Tell me about how that story got sparked for you.
Yeah, I think pretty much hit the nail on the head with it. I'm always a big fan of horror and thriller type stories with mystery to it. So a big fan of someone like Mike Flanagan's work, Haunting of Hill House, that type of kind of metaphysical, ethereal type aspect. So the story for Guilt really, it sounds weird when I talk about writing stories. My wife thinks it's a little unhinged. I will literally sometimes have a blank piece of paper and just write whatever like kind of comes to, and then just try to keep retweaking it until I kind of see a direction or an idea. I got kind of I knew that I wanted to have that kind of horror element. There's kind of a little bit of a mental health element to it. The whole idea of like the non-linear storytelling where it's told through the lens of the therapy session, and then you kind of get the vignettes, which are a little bit more into a psyche, and that shows a little bit more of that as you said, like eerie supernatural elements into the story, whether it's based in reality or if it's just kind of rooted in his mind. So I just kept working on it and eventually kind of crafted what it is today.
So in your director's statement, you mentioned that the film is deeply personal and connected to witnessing the journey of self-healing. What I think that can resonate with a lot of people in a lot of ways. So what do you hope that audiences take away from that kind of exploration into emotional territory?
Yeah, it's some of it's kind of rich coming from me because I suffer from kind of the same thing, but like a really self-defeating attitude. I think the protagonist, it doesn't really kind of delve into what exactly he might have going on, but it's struggling to kind of see the self-worth that we have in ourselves. And through the story, someone else kind of sees him as something worth being saved when he didn't feel like he was worth being saved. So I just think that the kind of resonating feature that I would love people to take away is that the world is a better place with you in it, and that you always have the opportunity to grow and develop and thrive and create something great from your journey or whoever you might impact in your lifetime. So I think kind of rooting it a little deeper into myself and my history is my father went through a suicide attempt a few years before he ultimately passed, and I think that through my lifetime, kind of watching his rise and fall has left a mark on me, and I definitely know that it's something that I struggle with and something that I think is a very important conversation and is something that people should really think about is the effect that the world is having on you and how you can take that time to try to heal from it.
Bobby, thank you for sharing that personal story. And I think what you said is really beautiful about the world being better with you in it. And I wholeheartedly agree. So striking that bit of hope in what is a drama, horror, thriller type of
Absolutely.
film.
I think just to kind of dovetail on that, I also kind of love the element of creating something that's dark and horrific, and then kind of having it have that uptick near the end, or try to have it leave off on maybe not such a detrimental note, maybe more sombering, where it kind of leaves an audience member, hopefully just kind of makes them think and consider what could happen or what might happen.
So I've read somewhere that you've made 13 short films since 2018. Is that right?
Correct. Yes,
Oh
ma'am.
my goodness. You've been hard at work. So, so how does guilt fit into that, or stand apart from that body of work?
I think in a lot of ways, guilt is, I feel, some of my strongest work. I feel like it's definitely a culmination of a lot of things that I've learned through those other 13 short films. And I think that it really showcases the craft and the narrowing of the vision as far as creating that identity and style. Because I think that is always a tough thing for filmmakers, feeling like you're making something that's truly your own. And if you're not just like, I see something that another director makes, or I see something on social media and just kind of emulating that. And I think that Guilt is one of those projects where I felt like I finally feel like I have a little bit more of my own in my work. So it's really gratifying to kind of look back at this piece and have that feeling.
Bobby, that's amazing. I love that. And I love that we get to share that with Richmond
Yeah,
and our
absolutely.
audience. And I also read that, speaking of influences, you cited Denis Villeneuve, David Fincher, Mike Flanagan, Alfonso Cuarón. Do you, with those influences and with this film, Guilt, do you see any of those fingerprints on this film?
I definitely think that all those filmmakers, they generally have that very harrowing content of work. I love Children of Men. I think that that's easily one of the best films in the last 20 years. Mike Flanagan's body of work is this very dark, really horrific style of work. And so I think that there are aspects of it that I thought a lot about those filmmakers and kind of what they do when creating some of this tone and message. And Fincher's a big fan of like really locked off shots, and I think that there's just little elements that I thought about as I created the shot list and I storyboarded and things like that. I would kind of reference and think about, and at the same time also just kind of play with. And I think that obviously, as them being some of my favorite filmmakers, I have my bias where I'll play around with something or like a pre-production and try to, if I get something that I'm like, oh, that kind of reminds me of this, then, I like that aspect.
Sure. So, in looking at your credits, I noticed lots of familiar names to me. You had a little bit of a Richmond dream team. You have Dan Wiegand, Sam Huggin, Benny Perkinson, Lindsay Paulette, Chris Mordo. Can you talk about how you went into assembling that crew and how that team creatively sparked together?
Yeah, so the one thing that I will say about the Richmond community is it feels very collaborative. It's easy for this industry to feel very competitive, but I think that there's a lot of people in this industry who are just really open to collaborating on projects or working with a friend of a friend. And a lot of these people I've met through various ways, whether like Lindsay Paulette, you mentioned, her and I attended a year-long program at Bright Point Community College, but John Tyler Community College at the time. And then she went off to VCU, and then she had met a few people, and I had started working as freelance. And, you just kind of cross paths with different people, and then you find out that, oh, this person also knows this person knows this person, or, oh, I need someone for this. And it's just kind of a nice little web of people who are willing to just kind of jump into projects and help collaborate. So I'm very grateful for all of them for taking time to help um, craft this project and really make it what it is, because it was a great crew. I think the production days went really smooth. Everything just kept on schedule, and any type of problems that arose, it was nice, especially for me, kind of having a million things firing off all at once, knowing that I had people in my corner who would help me problem solve a situation. Sam, who was shooting the shots that required actors to be in the water, and the way that I was shooting it was definitely a low filmmaker indie approach. It was just the kind of the fish tank method, where you have like a fish tank and you drop the entire rig into the fish tank, and then you can kind of seed everything into the water. And we were losing our daylight, and we had moved the fish tank quick, and a massive crack went down the side of it. And we had one more shot to get, and I was like, "Well, that's all she wrote." And Sam's like, "Yeah, I think we can figure it out." And so while I was trying to coordinate something else, he was just like over there taping away this fish tank so we could get that last shot. So it's very gratifying to have those people who can help you problem solve and are willing to just kind of jump in and be like, I can handle this while you take care of that. So again, just extremely thankful to have all of them part of the crew.
And that shot is amazing, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So let's talk about your cast. How did you go about casting and directing your cast?
Yeah, so we posted casting call, Facebook groups, some Instagram groups, ended up being on some of the casting websites, and I was really surprised at the amount of submissions I received. I think for all three roles, it ended up being just north of 200 submissions, which I was not expecting for a project of this size, and I was getting a lot of submissions from also out of state. I guess I hadn't thought that someone, in LA would be submitting for a role in Virginia, but it's awesome. So yeah, kind of went through, took a look at who was interested for the lead role. Jordan, I know I wanted a very specific look, and there were some really good submissions for him, but I settled on Aaron because in one of the sides that I was sending around, there was a note or action line about how he breaks down, and a lot of the submissions, a lot of people read that and they just kind of created like this very embellished, like crying and very like harrowing kind of performance, where Aaron definitely took a much more subdued approach, and almost like a vehicle, like an engine breaks down, it just stops and it refuses to work. Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciated that he had took it kind of in that way, and I think that's the way that I had envisioned it. So we had a conversation, and I had never crossed paths with him before. He's a Richmond local. I could tell that he had really good work in his demo reel, and I think we just vibed really well. I think that's a really good way to put it. We met up and we just chatted about it, and he was great on set. He was one of those that you could tell that he's just beyond the acting aspect of it, just really interested in everything going on. So he stayed till the end on all the shoot days. Like, he was really willing to kind of just jump in and get his hands dirty on whatever. I see stuff like that, and I think that's just such a great mentality to have, especially in small projects like this. Not that he was required or needed or expected, but the fact that he was just interested and willing was awesome. The other two actors, Dion Allen, who had played our therapist, she was a friend of mine who I know locally here in Powhatan. And she knew that I did this. She had seen some of my short films, and she was like, "Hey, if you ever need an actor, wink, wink, nudge, nudge." And, people say that and you never really know. And then she had saw me post the casting call, and she was like, "Hey, can I submit for that?" and she had no prior acting experience. So I was like, you can submit for it, but I'm looking for the best person for the role. Like that's really what it is. And she's like, I totally get it. And we got a lot of really good interest for the therapist. And I think Dion definitely provided a reading that I was like, I think one thing that really came through in her reading is she works full time as a fitness coach. She owns a gym here out in Powhatan. So she's really good at motivating people and creating, like, fostering those comfortable experiences as people are working out and they feel that, oh, they've made it to their limits or they can't do something. They're doing some new exercise that's really weird and goofy and they might not like it. And she's just really good at kind of talking people through and showing that you can do this. Like, this is something that you can do. And that in tandem with the fact that she is also a mother of two, I think those are elements.
Therapist.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that really pulled through in her reading. And then after the fact, she was like, "Oh, my son was helping me with the reading, so we were recording it together." And I just thought that was such an awesome experience that she could also do that with her son. I think that's a great thing. I have a little boy myself, and I hope that as he gets older, those are opportunities that I can have with him where we can just um, have something that we can both be excited about and things like that. So, um, yeah, I think she did great. It was, again, her first performance in something like this, so it was definitely something very new. And I think that at some point the nerves were a little on her, but we were able to talk it through. And I think she really gave a good performance for the part. And then our final role, Leslie Talley, she is actually based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. She had submitted and she had a great reel. I think that she had a great look for the character, but this was just her character was just such a kind of a strange one to cast because it it's such a minimal character visually, I guess, but the character provides such a massive kind of blanket on the story. So I really wanted someone who would be able to take that brevity and create the weight behind it that we needed. So she had submitted the readings, and as you've watched the script, there's not much dialogue for that character, but she did a great job. And I talked to her about the traveling and she was totally fine with it. So she ended up also being very open to, as you saw in that role, it required a light stunt. She had to be suspended. And then she was also in water with another actor, which, mind you, this was March in Virginia. So the water was a little crisp to, to say.
Okay, because you talked about the fish tank shot. So that really was open water.
It was actually not open water.
Okay.
So, just to button up with Leslie, she ended up being great. A great story that I love to tell is she showed up, and the first shot that we had to do was the suspension shot where she's suspended over the other actor. So it was just a funny first experience being like, "Hey, great to meet you finally face to face. Here's the suspension harness. We're about to rig you up." And she was a team player. She was all about it. She took direction well. She's a great actress. And I just really appreciated that she made the time and effort to be a part of the project. But yeah, so also kind of moving now into your water question, the whole water element was an interesting aspect to approach in this project. Depending on who you ask, it feels like some mad scientist type stuff. But I was like, instead of taking the actors to an open body of water, what if I just built my own pool and filmed it all there so I could have complete control? So I ended up building a 8 by 8 foot pool that we filmed all those segments with actors in the water in. And we had,
that's amazing. Wow.
yeah, we shot it in front of a blue screen. And, you know, your earlier question talking about like, where does guilt feel seat itself in my body work? And one of the big reasons I think that it's such a some of my best work is and ambitious work is because as a creative, you're always trying to step out of your comfort zones, and that's how you grow. You do something, and not really even a creative, but any type of skill set or profession. That's when you try to pick up a new skill, it feels weird and goofy, and you don't like it, and it's kind of scary. And there were a lot of aspects in this project that I was expanding beyond my comfort zone. So filming actors in water, building a pool for those actors. Oh no, how do I make this look like it was actually filmed in a body of water in a river? So yeah, I settled on doing the pool. So I had my budget laid out. I had budgeted out lumber if I were to just go to a lumber yard and buy all the lumber. And then I found um, just some crazy YouTube video where someone made a pool out of wooden pallets. So I was like, oh, that's a way that I could save some money in the budget. So I went on Facebook and bought 10 pallets for $20 and bought a few like ancillary pieces of lumber to really secure it. So got it all together, got like a pond liner in it and filled it up. And I was like, cool, now I have a pool. How do I make this look like it's just not a pallet pool, like a hodgepodge pallet pool in my driveway? So then I was like, well, that probably requires some VFX work. And I've done VFX work before, and I've done exactly enough VFX work to know that this was out of my skill set. So I knew I needed to enlist the help of someone. And man, that was an arduous process. I pretty much pinged my professional circle to try to get recommendations. Things that I had found out is VFX artists, rightfully so, are not cheap.
Mhm.
And VFX involving water are definitely things that make like people in the VFX world uncomfortable because it's such a fluid element that you never know how working with it's going to be. And also they heard my pitch about, hey, this is a pool that I built in my driveway. Can we make this not look like that? So I ended up going through quite a few correspondence. Some of them would fizzle out when it came to budget. Some of them would fizzle out when came to the water aspect, some of it just no responses. So I decided I just went onto the filmmaker subreddit and just searched VFX. And I had seen this guy's post before, a guy, Martinez Kilnu, and he had posted some of his work that went pretty viral within that subreddit. And I was like, you know what? I've had like 12 no's so far. Like, what's one more? So I sent him a message and I was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about some VFX stuff. And he responded. He's like, all right, I'll listen to what you have to say. So I sent him everything. I mean, I had these schematics drawn. I had like the proposed shots. I mean, literally all the information, the budget that I had to work with, and just because I wasn't trying to waste anyone's time at this point. It was either going to be yes or no. And he responded and he was like, yeah, let's jump on a call. Found out that he was in Lithuania, so we had to kind of juggle the 7-hour time difference, but we jumped on a call and chatted about it. And I had sent him some references of kind of what I was thinking, and he provided a lot of really good feedback at that point as far as like basically splitting the difference on how we could mitigate some of the VFX work to make it all more tangible and something that would be realistic to do. So we chatted about it. I sent him updates on the pool build and I did some test footage. So I plunged into the pool. This was February at this point. I plunged into the pool and got him some test footage. And, I think all the way up to basically production, the whole general vibe from everyone was like, is this going to work? Is this going to work out? And we got the footage and we sent it to him, and he was like, "Yeah, I think we got it. I think we can make this happen." So he did all those water VFX shots, replacing the blue screen and making it feel like it's not just a pool in my driveway, and a few other VFX shots in the film. And I think that he absolutely crushed it. So he was an excellent resource to have, and someone who I would love to have in my corner again on future projects.
And tell me his name again.
It's Martinez Kilnu, and it's possible that I'm mispronouncing the last name, so I apologize about that. But his company is Shark Picture Studio, and he's based out of Lithuania, and he does some incredible work. So he's great, great, great resource to have.
I love that story, and I can't wait for people to see what you're describing so they can see how that came together. Now, knowing what went into making that possible,
Mhm.
making that shot possible. And I also love that you said, and if there's any takeaway that I have personally from doing these podcasts with filmmakers, is it's true what they say. You're going to get a lot of no's, but eventually you're going to get a yes, and that yes is going to be the right one that
Yeah.
helps you complete that project. And don't be afraid to to keep asking. I've heard some really, really amazing stories about being gutsy and asking those
That's
people
awesome.
you're afraid of. There's no way in a million years we'll get this person to work on this project, and lo and behold they do. So I
Yeah.
think that's a great lesson. So let's see, you talked about him being in Lithuania. You also had post-production people in Texas and Maryland as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So one of my best friends, Lisa, he was quick TLDR. Before I attempted this crazy creative endeavor as a filmmaker, I spent like 10 years touring in a band. And Lee was the vocalist of that band. So he's still one of my best friends, and he's an incredible musician, but he does the scoring for a lot of my projects and some of the sound design and stuff like that. So it's such a gratifying way to still really have such a great connection and friendship, and then also be able to work together on some of these projects. So I think that him and I are really in line with kind of our visions, and we talk a lot about concepts and ideas, and it's just great. I think music is such a massive aspect of really any creative endeavor. I think music can just completely change a tone of a project, and it's nice knowing as you're kind of moving forward in a project, and especially pitching things to people for the project. He had already written, kind of like we had collaborated on this concept music, so I already had this track of music that a lot of it made it into the final film to kind of help exemplify that feeling and tone. I think Aaron, our lead, had even mentioned, because I had sent it to him, that was just kind of a great asset to have, just to listen to as he kind of read through the script and prepared for the role and stuff like that. So I think that is such a monumental asset to have, to really help stabilize what that project can be and the direction and tone that it's going to take.
I'm looking through your credits here, and I love that you have Kaylin Thackeray, set water safety, Kyle Felter, stunt coordinator. I love seeing that you were the editor as well. So you captured exactly what you wanted to capture. That's so much control as editor. And David Music for colorist. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Super, super great work on the color. Love
Yeah,
that.
David is second to none. He has been such a great friend over the last few years, and incredible person to work with. And again, kind of in line with what I was saying with Lee, it's great to have these friends in this industry who, like him and I, can get together and we can just like have a color session, but also just kind of hang out as well. It's really awesome. Deep appreciation for what he does. He's really just a wizard. I edit and I color a lot of like client projects and stuff like that, watching what he can do, it shows me. I often say that the more I learn in this industry, the more I realize how little I know about things in this industry.
But that
He's
keeps you
great.
going. That's
Yeah.
more things to learn and to keep you going. That's fuel
Hmm.
for the next thing. So can you talk budget, pages, time, pre, post,
Yeah.
all of that?
Yeah. So, budgeting and funding is always kind of the mystery when it comes to these projects. I had looked a lot into like fiscal sponsorships and then
Mhm.
maybe like crowdfunding and stuff like that. That just kind of, maybe this is to my like impatience, but I just feel like all that just kind of bloats the whole pre-production process. And I knew that I had funds that I could just invest into it. So I had about a budget of $5,000 that I utilized for this project. I think I came above that, maybe about 10%, but I knew that that's what I could afford, and that when I kind of lined stuff out and trim some fat, like the lumber I mentioned earlier, there were a few aspects of that that I was able to utilize. I was able to get our ambulance for. I basically traded some work to get the ambulance, so that freed up some additional funding. And it was a lot of strategizing, but we made it happen. And then I cannot express a lot of the friends and crew who worked on this project did it for just the time to be there. Like they were more than willing to dedicate their time to helping me bring this to life. And I think that speaks to kind of the collaborative nature that I had referenced earlier, and then also just the camaraderie that this area has. So it was great to not have to stress necessarily about that, and understanding that people were coming out because they wanted to come out and help, and they wanted to hang out with all the friends on the project and stuff like that. But yes, as I mentioned, we only went about 10% over our budget. VFX ate up a good chunk in post-production. You had mentioned our collaborator from Maryland. That's a guy by the name of Andrew Reynolds. Incredible musician, someone who the Once Upon a Time band story, we worked with him for a lot for producing some of our music. And he did the kind of the final mix and master of everything. Wanted to make sure that talent was paid. Wanted to make sure that our crew was very well fed throughout the production. But yeah, we made it happen, and I feel good with that number. That's something that it's either, oh, I'm going to spend that money creating a product that I love, or I'm just gonna like buy a new camera or some gear or something like that. And I'm like, well, this in of itself is a investment into
Absolutely.
me and my career and things like that. So it's definitely worth the money. And at the end of the day, it's like, what else you can spend your money on? Might as well spend it on something that you know that makes you happy and you feel gratified doing. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so the script was 6.5 pages, about
Okay.
7, which is pretty in line with the final runtime. 7.5 minutes is what it ended up being. So I think the tricky thing was just trying to find the locations, and this all kind of wraps into budget as well, like figuring out where we could save money on budget. So some of the locations were just at my home, which is free with an asterisk. I still pay my mortgage. It's an expensive location, but yeah, as any homeowner will resonate with. But it's nice to have that resource, and my wife is very supportive, so she was totally like, okay, that's fine, let's make that happen. The ambulance, I had basically worked out a plan with Prince Edward Rescue Squad. Incredibly thankful for them. The first rescue squad that I had approached kind of gave me the runaround and made up a bunch of time because they were like, "Oh, we took it, gave it to this person, this person, this person," and that whole time they never even really gave me a price because I didn't expect the ambulance to necessarily be free. So that was just disappointing that kind of was a whole runaround that's nothing. And then one of my other best friends, his mom is involved with the rescue squad, so she was able to kind of get me like in touch with the board, and I made my case, and then yeah, we just chatted about it and basically came up with an agreement. And then I think also the big caveat is I was willing to be strategic and shoot that scene where the ambulance was. So that scene takes place basically right in front of the rescue house. We just moved it to kind of the green area, so it kind of felt cohesive with the story. So that was a great aspect. So that was in Prince Edward or Farmville. And then I knew that we had needed a bedroom for the bedroom scene. And the bedroom scene's tricky because that requires an actor to be suspended over another actor. And I was like, oh, whose bedroom am I gonna tear up to try to make this happen? And I was really thinking about it, and all I can say is God bless moms, because my mom also lives in Farmville, and she has like this detached garage at her home. And early on, in one of my first short films, I built a 12 by 12 foot room within the garage to shoot the short film, and she was like, "All right, whatever." So now here I come, 10 years later, as the guy in my mid-30s, being like, "Hey, mom, you mind if I clean your garage out a little?" And she's like, "Oh, that's mighty nice of you." It's like, "Yeah, I'd really love to. You remember that time I built a bunch of walls in there? You mind if I do that again?" She's like, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have this idea. I need to build a bedroom." So she's incredibly supportive. So, and then sweeten the deal by cleaning her garage. But I was able to clean the garage out and get the lumber to basically build all the walls, so that scene is built within my mom's garage. And I knew that I had pretty much free reign there. So when it came to the suspension aspect of the actress, it's like, man, like, I guess I could rent a truss. I could rent some sort of like system that I could kind of get above and this and that. So I was pricing things out, and I'm like, man, there has to be an easier way to do this. So um, I worked construction there for a little while in between my music to my filmmaking career. And my wife's brother, my brother-in-law, he works construction as an electrician. I was like, I just need to talk to someone who's not going to look at this from like a film perspective. So I called him up and I was like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to basically suspend someone from the ceiling. And like I can get up and access the ceiling trusses, like, but I don't want to tear up this, like I don't want to just like completely pull out sheetrock from the ceiling and like make all this like mess and work. And he was like, so this is what you're trying to do? I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, you know what I would do is I would just get a 2x, I would lay it across the ceiling joist. I would drill 2 holes, throw some 3/8 all thread down through, so you only have a small hole through the sheetrock that you have to patch up. And she's not gonna go anywhere. You could put your pulleys on that and mount everything. And I was like, man, that was just like so disgustingly easy for him to just think up like that. And it worked. Like that's what I ended up doing. I got just 2 pieces of lumber. I put them across, so the weight, it was like kind of crosshatched. And I mean, if that fails, then we have bigger problems because the whole building's coming down at that point. And got some 3/8 all thread that I just drilled down through the 2x, then down through the sheetrock. So it left only these four little holes, and then I had these four uh, incredibly strong mounting points that I could attach pulleys to, get the rope, rented the suspension harness, and that was another kind of area that I was able to save on funding, because now instead of renting like this big like truss for $200-300, it was two $5 pieces, 2x4, and a few dollars of all thread and some bolts and washers and stuff like that. So it ended up just helping carve it down and arguably probably be a much stronger setup than the initial idea. So yeah, there was a lot of problem solving involved on this project, suffice to say. And a lot of that problem solving translated into helping me stay within a reasonable bounds of my budget, and then also just helping me step out of my comfort zone and do bigger and better things that I hadn't considered doing.
What I really love about that story and the water shot, and building these locations that you didn't have is, people don't realize what goes into all of this to create a shot that lasts 30 seconds on screen.
Yeah, that was kind of the hilarious aspect of it, because knowing how it was going to kind of edit together and storyboard it, I knew that was basically two shots that was going to be just there and gone. But I was like,
and that's your biggest part of your budget.
Yeah, and I was like, it's worth it though, because I mean, the shot turned out, just that alone, really, really, just a lot of gratification with how that shot turned out.
Bobby, I have loved every minute of hearing about how this film came together, and I really can't wait to share it with Richmond at Indie Fest on November 15th. And you will be there, and there will be members of your crew there. So everyone who's listening to this, come on out and see the film and meet the cast and crew and talk shop, and you might meet a new collaborator, who knows. Can you tell us, Bobby, in the meantime, how listeners can keep up with your work and follow your next projects?
Yeah, so I'm fairly active on Instagram. So Bobby_Huotari, my last name, Huo, T as in Tom, ARI. I also have a website, bobbyhuotari.com, and I have Guilt as a webpage on there. So I plan to keep that updated with kind of the things that Guilt will be doing during its festival run. And also through my website, you can get in contact with me either directly or check out my YouTube or any other type of relevant social media.
Bobby, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network Podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.